Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Joni Young and I'm going to be showing you step by step exactly how to paint this fantasy landscape. Now this is one of my intuitive paintings. This is my approach to painting most of the time. I love to just not know exactly what I'm going to paint and just approach it, picking out a few colors that I like, brushes, and beginning with just an overall pattern. And to begin this one, I'm going to be taking a number 30 filbert brush. You can use any large brush you want. This is just for covering large areas for the background. A flat brush would work as well. I've got cadmium yellow, cool or light hue with some titanium white. I've got water on my brush to help spread and pull and blend that paint around. And you can see with my brush strokes already, I'm starting to create wavy lines. So I really want to create some flow and movement in here. And with all this pattern going on in the background, it really kind of gives a moody, relaxing vibe to the painting. So I like to create these kind of groovy patterns that are relaxing to look at and incorporate a landscape into them however I can. And I just start to see that as I add colors and lines and patterns, the painting and landscape starts to come to me a little bit at a time. It's a really fun process. So without washing my brush, I'm taking some pink. I'm actually using a neon pink here, but you can use any pink that you want for this. And I'm still gonna follow that pattern and continue that around, blending it into a little bit of that yellow so that we get that really soft, pretty coral peachy tone in there. To make sure my brush is all cleaned out now, I want all that warmth out of there. I want to have a fresh, clean brush with a bit of water so I can have a nice, clean turquoise with a bit of white to work with. And I'm going to begin by starting towards the left side. I'm going to go just underneath that yellow and then work my way up slowly into the yellow so that I get a little gradation going on and a different shade of green. Blending out a little bit of that turquoise and yellow, I'm going to go in with a clean brush and mix up just slightly, not completely making one new color. See how I kind of push and slide my brush into part of the blue and part of the turquoise. Again, using my brush flat for thicker areas and then letting off and using just the tip to create those skinnier lines. I'm going to come in this area where it kind of just dips down. I think that's the perfect spot to add a little bit of sunshine and sun rays. All right, it's time to start coming in with this landscape now. I'm back over to my giant filbert brush. I'm going to make a green gold, olive green, earthy color here, just with some black and my cadmium yellow. I've got only a little bit of water in my brush just so that I can get that paint to flow out and blend easily. And I'm going to just go for it right here. I'm seeing a little staircase, and then I'm going to make larger and longer brush strokes back and forth, side to side. Mix up a little bit more color here. Some areas are going to be a little bit darker. I don't want it to be the same tone all over, so I'm going to make a few areas here a little bit darker, so just by adding a little bit more black. Just pulling and flicking a little bit of black with the yellow. I don't want it to be just straight black. That's a little bit too dark and too intense for me. So I always add a little bit of yellow or green in there. Okay, so it's time to start working on this big tree, and I'm going to take a little bit of each, more of the burnt sienna than the black. Remember, black is really strong, so you need less of it. And I'm going to start right down here in the bottom right. So I'm going to continue along here with my tree, adding a little bit more black sometimes, and then more of the burnt sienna. I really personally love burnt sienna. It's my go-to for brown. I rarely use any other browns. I love the warmth that it has. It's very intense, and it dries really nicely. Like, it still has a very strong richness factor to it once it dries, and it also takes on a bit of a velvety suede look to it. There's a few paints out there that will do that, and this burnt sienna is one of them. So I'm going to come here along the left side, and I'm going to continue along. I'm going to use the pattern that I've got in the background to kind of guide me, and yeah, just sort of be a guide for me to add these branches to, because that will all create that flow and oneness. They're all going to flow together and give us that nice, peaceful, tranquil vibe to the painting. This brush that I've got here, I want you guys to get one of these. They're wonderful. This is really affordable too. It's a 1" by Princeton, and it's an oval mop. These and my makeup brushes that I get on Amazon are my favorite foliage and tree foliage brushes to use. They just make everything so perfect and natural looking. So it just makes it that much more fun. It's already fun to paint, right? But when you have that brush that works for you, it feels like you're one with the brush and the painting. This is that brush. So and I'm not sponsored or affiliated with Princeton at all, or any company really. I just like to recommend things that I find that work good for me, and I think that you guys are really going to like these too. And many of you guys have told me that you love these brushes that I recommend. So any newbies out there to my channel, it's a great brush. I'll try to remember to link it down below in the info and description area below the video. So I'm going to add the foliage here on either side. I'm going to do the dark base first, so using a little bit of black with the cad yellow, and then I'll start to push in and blend a little bit of the white, even a hint of turquoise in there. I also want to add some more branches and foliage in the trees, so I'm using one of my giant blush brushes. Yep, I'm using a makeup brush. Same colors for the foliage. Don't get your mop brushes wet first, guys. Only wet your brushes once you're completely done with them, because the water will flatten them and squish them, and you'll lose that fluffy round shape that you need to make your foliage and your little bushes. So just a little bit of black, white, cadmium yellow. We're going to do the dark first, so it's the same rule, right? The dark base first for the shadow, and then the highlights, you're going to start adding a little bit of white with your yellow. Okay, it's time to start adding our delicate little highlights here. This is always exciting for me. It doesn't matter how many times I've painted trees and foliage, and I've been painting for a long time, over 20 years. It's always fun and always satisfying. I love this part of painting, and just look at it. It really just brings everything to life, doesn't it? That light against the shadow, it's so fun. I have a few videos even where I've painted big trees like this and added little cabins and cottages and made like a big tree house sort of village. So I'll try to remember to leave a link for that, but if I forget, I have a whole playlist of fantasy paintings. So if you guys love fantasy paintings and art as much as I do, be sure to check that out, because I've got so many different tutorials and art inspiration just waiting for you guys to unlock. So this part right here, I'm kind of pushing with my brush. I'm kind of doing that push tap to make it more flat and graceful like, and start to curve and change the direction of my brush so it starts to flow up into these branches that are hanging down and cascading down. We want to stay with that flow and keep with that direction and all of that curviness that we've got going on. It really, really plays a big role in this painting. And for our flowers, we're going to be using pink and white. And I'm going to be using a little filbert brush. So I'm just going to take some of my titanium white here, clean brush, just a little filbert brush. You can use a round brush as well. My filbert brush, just if you're curious, I think is a number 6 to 8. But that's because I've got, and that's actually quite big for flower petals, but it's only because I'm working on a large canvas today. So I'm just going to push and tap, you know, 4 to 6 little petals, but it's mostly impressionistic. Because they're going to be far away and not really close up, I'm not going to make them too detailed. This is just about color and placement and light and shadows. So sometimes you want to use a little bit more of the pink, sometimes you want to use a little bit more of the white. That way you'll get that variation in tone. As I'm going along the branches and adding these little cherry blossoms, I'm going to just add a little bit of this light bubblegum pink highlight to some of the swirls and the patterns down below. And then I'll continue up above in the tree and just add a few bits of flowers here and there, but it's not going to be too overpowering. The first painting I did, part 1, the similar painting to this one, is really, really full of cherry blossoms, and I painted that in the springtime when everything around me was in full bloom and quite beautiful. So it's quite a feminine looking painting. If you love pink and flowers, you'll really like that one. And I'm just going to take a little bit of white with my pink and my burnt sienna. I'll create like sort of a milk chocolate shade here and highlight some of these branches. And I'll just kind of follow along and add a little bit here and there. Not too much, just a little bit. Little goes a long way. Again, a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of black, a little bit of water on my brush. Pulling lightly, twisting and wiggling. I want them to not look perfect, right? I want them to have some flow and some pretty swirly effects to them, but then some areas I want to have just sort of a little bit more random and crooked little branches, just so that we get that natural vibe to the tree and the branches as well. So it's important to have both, but of course you can paint them however you want. If you want them to be really swirly, like the rest of the painting in the background is, you can definitely make yours like that. So I'm just using one of my large mop stipple brushes here. I'm going to start working on some foliage more towards the foreground that's going to be above our little secret door. Taking those same colors, cadmium yellow. In fact, I've got a cadmium yellow warm here that I'm using. I just realized I thought I would try a warm and see how much that would change the temperature of the foliage. So you can use either or, cool or warm yellow, and a little bit of black. and I'm just pushing and tapping. This is a really nice brush. I got it a long time, many years ago, a long time ago in Michael's, and they must have discontinued them because I can't find them anymore, and I've had so many of you guys try to find them for me, and none of us can find this exact brush. I don't even know. I want to say that the bristles are synthetic. Back over to a filbert brush now. I'm going to take more white and pink. I'm going to come along the side here and just start to gradually add some little cherry blossoms. And notice how I just sort of took those two colors, the white and pink, and tapped and then pulled and blended that out into the end of it as well, so that it all flows together and sweeps off to the left and just sort of disappears. So I'll add a few more little flowers here. Again, you guys can add as many as you want, and of course you could paint yours any color that you want. Another beautiful color, I was kind of torn because I really like this neon pink, but I also have another color by the Holbein series of luminous neon acrylics that I love, and it's the violet. It's purple violet, and there's purple violet, there's rose, so there's a few different color options that would work really well. And I'm mentioning those ones because they will be really complementary with this earthy olive green gold color that we have underneath. The next brush I'm going to be using is a number 12 angle or dagger brush, so they're known as either one. I'm taking turquoise, phthalo blue, and some white, and even though it makes no sense at all, this is a fantasy painting, of course, and I'm just going to add some waterfalls coming down here right over top of the background part of the tree. This will be the base, the first base of our waterfalls. We need a darker base in order for our highlights to show up. So right away I pull into a little bit of white, mix it up with my turquoise and blue, and then I'll be adding more and more to this, adding a few more highlights with more white. I'll be adding a few more waterfalls here and there. I really like to use this brush for creating waterfalls because it helps me have control over how thin I want to make them, how wide I want them to be. What if we added a secret door right about here? I think it would be even more enchanting and inviting. Who doesn't love a little door? Just with a little bit of phthalo blue, a little bit of burnt sienna, and a touch of black with my filbert brush. It's got that round end, and it's really great for making archways and doors like this. So I'm kind of tapping and being a little bit messy at the top because I know I'm going to have foliage over the top anyways. So that kind of tucks this door in. It makes it look a little bit hidden and a little secluded, but also really inviting and tempting to open up and go through. For the door itself, I decided to use my cadmium yellow warm with the burnt sienna, and great choice. I love the tone. I love this color for the door. Of course, you can make your door any color that you want. You can make it bright red if you want. That would be really cool, and it would really add more character to this painting and make it your own. So be sure to choose whatever color that you want for your door. Then I'm going to add a little bit of that phthalo, burnt sienna, a little bit of black to outline and really make this stand out. And then add a few little lines up and down. I'm not going to stress too much about making them perfectly spaced out and even. And that's the way I paint. I don't spend a lot of time perfecting any one thing in my painting. I like things to look a little bit crooked, a little bit imperfect. I play mostly up on color and light and shadow, and just kind of like to invoke a feeling in my paintings and express myself through patterns and color. And then I'm going to come in with the first base of my foliage here, purposely adding it over the edge of the door so it tucks and nestles that door in even more and makes it look like it's been there a long time. So using a phthalo blue mostly for this, maybe a little bit of yellow with that phthalo blue, maybe a little bit of burnt sienna, as long as it's a nice dark rich base to begin, and then we can come in with our highlights. So at first I just wanted to do little taps and make it look like the same foliage everywhere else, but then I decided it would be a lot more fun and colorful to make larger leaves. So maybe there's some big ivy leaves in here, or any kind of leaves that you want really, or any plants, but that's what I'm going to do eventually. Before I do that, I'm going to just tap in. I've got a mini little mop brush here. This came in my makeup set, and I'm just taking a little bit of turquoise yellow, a little bit of white, and I'll add little bits here and there for some highlights, just first off, and then I'm going to come in with some turquoise, phthalo blue, and just add a little patches and blobs here and there, just really impressionistically and loosely, and all that will help to make it look like there's larger leaves. So nothing's going to be too incredibly detailed. It's how you're going to see this whole painting from a distance. It'll all come together nicely. The smaller filbert brush, turquoise, mostly turquoise. There's always going to be a little hint of that phthalo in there. It just adds such a gorgeous richness to this area here. I love it. And I'm going to just dab. All I'm doing is dabbing, pushing a little bit to change the direction, and just by doing this you can tell that those are big leaves. Now, like I said, you can paint any leaves. They can be any leaves that you want. You're painting and creating your own little fantasy world and somewhere that you'd like to escape off and live in or jump into. So really think about that when you're painting, because it's going to help to make you paint more intuitively and create your own style and your own types of paintings. And it'll be something that you enjoy, right? Because you're painting what you love and what your favorite things are. I personally really love ivy, so I paint it a lot, and I also love ferns. So with that, I'm going to call this painting all done. This was a joy to share with you guys. I hope you learned a lot. There's a lot of information in this video. And don't forget to head over to Patreon to watch the full-length, step-by-step, in-depth tutorial of this. It's over an hour long. Have a wonderful day. Happy painting, and thanks so much for your support on my channel here. Bye, everybody.